First things first, a little announcement. I won third place in the Global YouTube Press Creators Tournament. This means I have 10 game keys to share with you. To win a game, just comment with your favorite ride and why you'd love to play EXOcars. And I'll be giving away the keys to lucky winners in the next few days. Now, let's get into the review of this amazing game. A couple of friends have always told me how awesome VR racing is. Apart from some limited experience with PSVR 1, specifically Wipeout, which was truly fantastic, and a somewhat incomplete Drive Club in GT, I didn't have much experience with VR racing. That changed a few weeks ago when I got an email from Joyway Publishers asking if I wanted to participate in the review process for EXOcars, a new VR racing game where you drive buggies across all kinds of terrains. Of course, I accepted. Then came an offer to join a tournament lasting 10 days. I didn't accept it right away. I love racing, particularly arcade style, but I usually avoid anything that leans towards simulation. However, since I already had the opportunity, I decided to give it a try and ended up taking third place in the global tournament. I would have been second if my last lap time hadn't been dismissed due to technical issues by the dev team. But it is what it is. Now, back to the important part, EXOcars. I've driven buggies only in MotorStorm, and I have to say I enjoyed it, especially the PSP version, Arctic Edge, more than the main game on the PS3 console. However, it was pretty challenging because you had to think about everything while playing, especially the chaos that occurs on the tracks. EXOcars initially felt even tougher because everything in the game is important. On my first attempt to play this title in VR, I failed spectacularly. On the first turn, I spun out, and on the first jump off the ramp, I felt my stomach turn. I thought, oh god, this isn't going to be as great an experience as I thought. But then, persistence kicked in, and I was determined to learn and see how I could become the ultimate buggy driver. EXOcars is a simcade, a type of racing game where you can't just floor the gas pedal and zoom around the track. You have to pay attention to absolutely everything on the track. Every bump and terrain irregularity can spin you out. Gas, brake, handbrake, you have to control it all. For the more experienced players, there's even manual gear shifting. Every sharp turn or seemingly small hill can cause you trouble because it's crucial for your wheels to stay on the ground. Otherwise, you'll fly off in some direction. I spent the first few hours learning the game's rules and physics, what can and can't be done, and I have to say it wasn't fun. In the game, you have to hold a virtual steering wheel, and it's incredibly hard if your hands are floating in the air without something tangible to grip, or unless you have an incredible calmness to keep them steady. I tried driving like that, thinking it was the only way, but I couldn't manage. It was incredibly difficult. I even thought about going to the kitchen and grabbing a tray to act as a steering wheel, but honestly, I was too lazy to try that. The biggest problem with the virtual steering wheel is that your hands eventually cross or just drop in the air, which directly impacts what happens on the screen, often resulting in spinning out or crashing into a barrier on the track. Totally by accident, without looking at the options where everything is clearly written for those who can read, I realized that you can control the vehicle using the analog sticks, just like on a console or PC racing game, and it completely changed my experience. Everything became easier, but still not enough to call the game easy. Then came the task of relearning everything to adapt to this new way of playing, but after a few hours, I finally mastered the controls. The biggest challenge was getting a feel for the track during the race and learning them because, as I said, everything on the track is deliberately placed to prevent players from just flooring the gas pedal and cruising. Every part of the track is important, and the most crucial thing for you as a driver is to make sure your wheels are always in contact with the ground. If you lose contact with even one wheel, you'll spin out. Therefore, managing the vehicle during the race is the most important aspect of the game. This is somewhat easier in VR because you can see exactly where you are positioned and what is in front, behind, and to the sides of you. However, seeing everything doesn't help much if you can't handle it all, literally. EXOcars is a racing game where precision is key, and I realized this the most during the tournament. Every small mistake can cost you half a second or more in the overall ranking, which means dropping a few places. This means you have to analyze and learn each track, and they all differ drastically. There are a total of 12 different tracks in the game, each with 1 or 2 variations. The variations are often done by having a reverse mode and at a different time of day, though some also have slightly different layouts. In other racing games, reverse tracks are practically the same as the regular ones, meaning the vehicle behaves the same and the driving principle is the same. That's not the case here, since every bump, pebble, and obstacle defines how you drive and the speed at which you drive on the track. Their repositioning means you have to modify your driving style, adapting to the new rules. On the tournament track, where I had a time of 1 minute and 30 seconds, I couldn't get the same time when it was in reverse. This is mainly because the way you enter most turns and the vehicle's behavior isn't the same. Acceleration, turning, reverse ramps for jumps. All of it forces you to relearn the track from scratch to get the best time. Honestly, when I saw that more than half the tracks were in reverse or slightly altered, I thought it would actually be boring. Only when I started the race did I see how different it was. The time difference between the regular track I had learned down to the smallest detail and the reverse version was as much as 8 seconds in the first few tries. And that's for me, a player who already knew what the track looked like and what to expect from it. That's how different the experience is with just a slightly altered track. In the game, there's a career mode where you practically race on tracks to earn credits and buy gear. The gear doesn't improve the vehicle's characteristics, just to clarify. Also, in the single-player mode, you won't have AI drivers racing around you, but rather ghost vehicles of real players who have already driven that track. After each race, you'll see your personal ranking on the track, the time needed to get gold, and a global leaderboard with other players' times. As you progress, the game will introduce ghosts of better players, so if you can't learn to drive a track on your own, you can follow the ghost vehicle of a better player, which is a cool feature. That's the asymmetric multiplayer the developers talked about. In addition, there's a classic multiplayer mode where you need to create a room with other players. In this mode, you can enable collisions with other vehicles, which increases the realism of the racing but also adds to the chaos in the races. It looks super fun and, of course, hilarious at times. What's really interesting is that the development team is adding a Mario Kart-like multiplayer mode where you can collect power-ups and mess with other drivers. I'm curious to see how this will work since driving in the game is already challenging. And this just adds another variable that will take the focus off driving. But whatever happens, it's sure to be a lot of fun. EXOcars is an excellent VR racing game, probably the best on the Meta Quest platform. Besides that, it's also available on Steam and coming soon to PSVR 2. So, if you love this type of racing with great physics and an excellent sense of speed, and most importantly, an incredibly rewarding feeling by the game, you won't regret it. And of course, you can also win the game by leaving a comment below this video, and I'll pick the winners early next week. Once again, I have 5 keys for MetaQuest and 5 for the Steam platform. In your comment, you can write why you would like to play this game and what your favorite driving game is. See you in a few days.